Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman of the Football History Dude podcast, and I'm stopping by this show real quick to tell you about a couple of cool giveaways that we have going on here at the network. Both are autographed books covering various topics of the NFL. The first is The Point After: How One Resilient Kicker Learned There Is More to Life Than the NFL by ex-NFL kicker Sean Conley. It goes over his unique experience as a walk-on kicker at the University of Pitt after never playing high school football. And then it gets into some of his time playing for NFL teams and so much more beyond the gridiron. The other is from author Kevin Bryant. His book is titled Spies on the Sidelines: The High-Stakes World of NFL Espionage. This book started as a curiosity, kind of a passion project to understand everything revolving around, well, Spygate. But this put Kevin down a rabbit hole learning about all sorts of espionage that has occurred throughout the history of the NFL. Both permissible and often the illicit techniques of gathering intel to try to impact the outcome of the game. To sign up for your chance to win an autographed copy of one of these books, all you gotta do is head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways and sign up. That's sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways. Again, check out all the other podcasts that we have in the Sports History Network as well. But now, back to your regularly scheduled journey to the sports history timeline.
Stick Heisman has been called. It's the stick of Marty McSorley.
Welcome to Marty's Illegal Stick, a hockey history podcast with your host, Scott Kinville. Let's hop on that Zamboni time machine and go back in time to look at hockey's glorious history.
And what's going on, hockey fans? And welcome to episode number 88 of Marty's Illegal Stick, a hockey history podcast, right here on the Sports History Network. I'm Scott Kinville, and if you're watching on YouTube, you will notice that things are a little bit different this week. I am not in the studio, and there is no Dave the Save Warner. Don't worry about it. There are no problems with Dave. Everything's fine. We just had a little booking issue with the studio, so I am flying solo this week. But don't worry about it. We got a great show lined up for you. Before we do, though, I just want to send – it's been a rough week for the world of sports here, and I just want to send out some condolences here to the families of Bill Russell and Vin Scully. Both passed away this week, both legends of sport, really. Bill Russell, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, basketball player of all time, and, of course, Vin Scully, longtime broadcaster for the Los Angeles and Brooklyn Dodgers, and both, like I said, are just legends and will never be forgotten. So our condolences to their families. Anyways, anybody who's been watching this show for a while knows that I am an LA Kings fan. I am a diehard. I love the team, and I've loved them for a very long time. Let's put it that way. I'm 48 years old, and I go all the way back to the 80s. And so today, I have the long-time head athletic trainer for the LA Kings. This guy is a legend as well. He was the head athletic trainer for the Kings from 1972 to 2006. He is a member of the Professional Hockey Athletic Trainers Society Hall of Fame. He is a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame, a member of the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, a member of the Rhode Island Hockey Hall of Fame, a member of the LA Kings Hockey Hall of Fame, and he holds the record for most games as an athletic trainer at 2,632. He is the one, the only Mr. Pete Demers. Pete, thanks for coming on.
I'm happy to be here, Scott.
I got to tell you, it is a honor and a pleasure for me to have you on because, like I just said, I'm a huge LA Kings fan. So if I start fanboying out, just don't worry about it. I'll be okay. So, how's things out there in sunny Southern California?
Great. Everything is real good. Kind of a sad day yesterday. My daughter and the granddaughter went back to South Korea. They were visiting. They haven't been here in 3 years, but spent a few weeks here, and it was nice. And I stood on my front step and watched their plane, Korean Air, go at yesterday afternoon. It was kind of a tearful time, but
I can imagine.
They made it safely, and I talk to them every day on FaceTime. So everything's good here.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, that's always great to see family too. It really is. So it's been retired since 2006 from the Kings. But like I said, the impact that you've had is just unbelievable. So you served, actually, you were in the Vietnam War before you're a veteran, before you became a head athletic trainer, which you were certified by the National Athletic Trainers Association. Pete, what made you decide you wanted to be an athletic trainer?
Well, I've been around the rink. I was around the rink since I was a little kid. I lived a few blocks from the old Rhode Island Auditorium, and we were called rink rats. We'd go there, clean the ice, and sweep the stands. They let us skate. Became friendly with everybody, all the old players like Camille Henry and Paul Larvey and even Howie Menard, and
Sure.
like this whole list of them. In fact, our reunion's coming up in another week, so I'll be going back to Rhode Island for that. And but when I got out of the Air Force, I went to work at Quonset Point Naval Air Station as an aircraft mechanic. That was my trade in the military.
Okay.
And I'd always stop into the Rhode Island Auditorium to see everybody. And I stopped in one day to see George Army. He was a trainer there for like almost 40 years. And he was ailing, had some issues, and he needed help. And he asked me if I could come in and help him in work. So I did that. I worked at night at the Naval Air Station, and then I'd work all day at the rink. And then he couldn't work as much as he wanted to work, and but he was there, but he couldn't do the job as much as he wanted to. So he had, I couldn't do both jobs.
Sure.
So I quit the government job. I got a lot of heat from that, from a lot of people, because I made $67 a week. And I had a decent job with the government, but I made $67 a week with the Reds. But I loved hockey.
Sure.
And after being for a certain amount of time, I was able to go to Brown University and University of Rhode Island to get my training and receive my certification. And it was just a great run after that. But love of the game, I think, was I put ahead of anything else.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? It's the Rhode Island Reds, or the Providence Reds. They're just one of those legendary teams that, I think there should be more made about them, really. And especially like the old AHL teams. It's fascinating when you go back and you look at the history for all of them. But so you start off as what year did you start? Let's see. Was it 1965? 65. Okay. So you were a trainer all the way up to 2006. What were some of the big changes that you saw from the time you started and the time you retired? And what were some of the duties you had over the years?
Well, the main duties of an athletic trainer are diagnosis, prevention, treatment of athletic injuries. But the trainer at that time wore many, many hats. Trainer, equipment manager, massage therapist, nutritionist, strength coach, all these different jobs. And we just did it. We just did all that stuff. We loaded the bus by ourselves and in and out of rinks late at night, sharpened the skates.
Man.
But then as time went on, it started to be more specialized. Players required more care. And there's so many stories. But the game has changed unbelievable. Now there's 7 trainers traveling, 4 trainers, 3 equipment managers, and 2 guys at home to accept the packages that come in, take care of the guys that are back home. They have 2 strength coaches, and then they have a full-time chef, serving breakfast in the morning and then lunch after practice. And I remember one year, I just throw this in, one year at the end of the season, we kind of have a review, and Rogie called me in. He was a GM then, and he said that the coach, who happened to be Rogie Vachon, had complaining that I was eating a sandwich in the locker room and in front of the players. And Rogie said, "Well, don't you think he might be hungry? I mean, he hadn't eaten all day."
Yeah, really.
But now it's just like unbelievable. And as far as the strength equipment in Culver Rink, we had 1 bike, and they hung their clothes on it. We had 1 pair of dumbbells. I used that to hold the door open, and all their training was done on the ice. And if you lost a game, you might be a pretty tough skate the next day. We call it a bag skate, and that's how they got their conditioning.
Wow. So in other words, I mean, in the early days, you were pretty much the jack of all trades.
Well, that's what we did, like that's what it took. And even now in the minor leagues, it's a lot better than it was, but still a one or a two man show in a lot of cases, especially in the lower minor leagues. And the job's the same, whether you're in the NHL in the show, or if you're in a team in Albuquerque in a Eastern League or something.
Holy mackerel. I tell you, it blows my mind, really, when you think about it, because not only were you responsible for the health of the players or if something happened to them on the ice, so you basically had to be an on-ice paramedic, but you were also taking care of everything behind the scenes, which is absolutely incredible. It really
people
is.
Have no idea. Like I used to, after a game, we'd take the gear to the practice rink, all the skates. We had a second set of gear, so we'd leave the forum and we'd throw the gear in the pickup truck and go over to the rink. And it was mostly me just doing that 9 trips up the stairs at Culver Rink with all the gear. And then I'd take the jerseys out to East LA to have them cleaned. And I'd drop them off at midnight and get home at 1 o'clock, and you'd be back in the rink and the next morning at 7:30, 8 o'clock to take care of the players that didn't play the night before the other guys came in at 11.
Wow. And was it a lot different for like their like physical regimens in the early days as opposed to when you were finishing up? Meal wise, training wise, was it a little bit different back then?
Well, it's all precise now. It's all planned meals, supplements, everything imaginable. It's just like going into a what's that fitness, like a store.
Planet Fitness or something, right?
Yeah, it sells all that stuff. I mean, it's all stacked up and lined up on the shelves, and everything it's for the players, So
sure.
That's how it's done now, and you want to have optimal performance out of your players. You got to take care of them. I remember Bob Pulford. He didn't want water on the bench because his feeling was that if the players drank water, it would add more weight to them. And we have to, after a year, he was my coach first 5 years. He was really a great guy, but he was very demanding and very firm. And but I had a great relationship with him over the years. And even after he left and went to Chicago, every time the Kings came to Chicago, he'd come down, knock on the door, and ask for Pete, and they'd come and say, "Hey, Bob Pulford's out there looking for Pete," And even my coach, Johnny Wilson, Iron Man, Johnny Wilson in Detroit. When we'd go to Detroit, he had a job at a carpet company, but he'd come down and see me and come in, and so it's so much like family. But yeah, Bob Pulford didn't want water on the bench. We finally had to convince him that we need to hydrate our players.
Wow. And when you saw him, did you bring him a bottle of water?
Yeah, beer after the game is one thing, but they need to have their water.
So after the Reds, you had a brief stint with the Columbus Checkers, and then you were hired on for the Springfield Kings to be their head athletic trainer in 1969. Kind of a no-brainer question here, but I got to ask it anyway. Is that what led to you getting hired by the LA Kings?
Yes, it was all it was unbelievable how everything fell into place. When I was in Providence, I worked there 3 years, and after the third year, George Army, he was still alive. Dave Creighton was the coach, and Dave Creighton, he wanted his guy in as a trainer. They just didn't think that I had enough experience. Mm-hmm. So they let me go. In fact, they asked me to come in and work at training camp, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I did to help the new guy. And then George sent a fax out to Andy Mulligan. He was a commissioner of that league. What was it? International League. He was a commissioner, and he sent it out to all the teams. And Columbus wrote back, and I went left at midnight on one night on an icy night in November, and I went to Columbus, and I was there for the rest of the year. And then Frank Christie, who was a longtime trainer in Buffalo, he was a good friend with Johnny Wilson because Johnny's brother Larry played in Buffalo, Larry Wilson, and So he called Johnny, Frank Christie called Johnny, and they brought me in for an interview in Springfield. And so they hired me there, and I was there 3 years. And then Norm Mackey, who was a trainer in LA, went to Atlanta in the expansion, and with Pat Quinn as a coach. And then so it opened it up for me, and Larry Regan hired me.
Wow. Let me ask you, was Eddie Shore still in Springfield when you were there, or was he gone by then?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. He would, in between the periods, he had a room upstairs above the locker room, and he played golf. That was a shooting range. So our guys are in the locker room in between the periods trying to focus on the game, and you hear these golf balls bong, bong off the ball. He's up there. And one night he came and knocked on the door, and he called everybody Mr. He came and knocked on the door, and Mr. Demers. So I went out, and he said that Larry Johnson, he was a player. He said his blade is not on correctly. So he watched me. I had to go in the locker room, and Eddie Shore, he owned the building, or he didn't own the building, but he owned the franchise or something. He owned something at the time, and he had a lot of power there. And he moved Larry Johnson. I had to drill the holes and everything, and this was in between the periods. And but yeah, and then at night after a game, we had one car, so my wife Marilyn would have to wait for me to come out, and it would be an hour after the game.
Sure.
And so it'd be freezing out, so she'd hide in the ladies' room, and Eddie would come in with a flashlight, and it would be dark in the ladies' room. He'd come in with a flashlight. She had to stand up on the seat in the stall. He'd shine the flashlight in underneath the stall to see if anybody was in there. You know, he was an amazing guy. He was overlooking everything. But yeah,
wow,
he has a great resume.
Oh, I guess so. Another one of those.
The stories flow out. You know, we could talk all day about each and every guy's disposition and all their quirks. But it was so much fun to go to work every day. You know, you go into the rink at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then maybe you get a little rest in the afternoon on the rubbing table for an hour. But then the game starts, and then after the game, you might fly to the next city. I mean, it's even if you're home, if you count the hours, it's 18 hours from the time you go to work to the time you come home. And I couldn't wait to go back to the rink in the morning every single day of my career. It was just like unbelievable. I remember I first got that feeling when I was in Providence. The games, well, a lot of games were on Sunday nights, and Monday morning you'd walk into the rink and you'd smell that beer and popcorn and smoke. And it just it was like oxygen to your brain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. That is awesome. So you arrived in Los Angeles in 1972. We all know that, hockey is pretty big in LA now, but what was it like when you first arrived in Southern California?
There were more Montreal fans in the rink than there were Kings fans. Whenever Montreal came, there were all these guys with white hats on, white like Ben Hogan hats. Mm-hmm. And they come to call them the White Hats. But, we'd have 8,000 people, and that's just the way it was. Like on the Miracle on Manchester, I think we only had like 8,000 people that night. And,
really?
We had a big comeback, and just jump into that a bit. But we had that big comeback, and Jerry Buss, the owner, he left. He left early when it was 5-0. And what a surprise he got when he got home.
Yeah, right.
But it was still, it was just, we kept building, kept doing marketing, and kept trying to bring players in. And maybe that was one of the problems in the early years. We bought some name players in to help our team, but the name players were great guys like Ralph Backstrom, Joe Marat, Terry Harper, just name after name after name, Rogie, that played somewhere else that were great, Bob Nevin, and Bob Wolford came in, and Larry Cahan, like over and over and over names, but they were names, but the legs, the brain was working and the hands were working, but the legs weren't. is working like they should have been when you're 25.
Sure.
That might have that I'm not a hockey authority, so that might have made a difference why we didn't have the success but the guys worked their tails off. But it was a camaraderie that they had together. When practice ended, everybody went to the bar, and some did drink a few beers and some didn't before they went home, but they were always together. Team dinners, everybody was together constantly, and that's what makes our game so great, is the camaraderie and sense of family that people just don't realize. Like I was mentioning, when you're a baseball player or basketball player, the parents, they throw a ball out in the street and the kids go and play and lights come on and you come home. But hockey, the family is really involved. It's 5 o'clock in the morning in the rink. You get a lot of expensive gear and driving all around to different little towns in your area for the kids to play. But the whole family is involved, and you're with your teammates constantly. So that's, I think, and they come from farms all across Canada traditionally and cities, but the family is a big word in our game.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. And you're right. Hockey, I think, more than just about any other sport out there, whether you're on another team or whether you're going against each other or on the same team, it's such a close-knit family because everybody pretty much experiences the same thing going through the sport. Insofar as, like you said, the 5 o'clock in the morning practices, late nights out at the rink, and it all kind of, that time away from your own family really kind of creates a second family for for the players and for the coaches and the staff and everybody. And it does create something really wonderful, actually.
I think that, excuse me, I think that it's character builders that starts at 5 years old. And by the time they get to our level, they have extremely high character. And like trainers have to have empathy and perseverance, and these players have so much character. You can depend on them.
Absolutely. And it's funny in talking about the early days. Obviously, when I say early days, I'm referring to the pre-Gretzky days. So for me, that's kind of like the line of demarcation, really. But you know what? The Kings did have some tremendous players back then, and it's again, I'm sure with LA having the Dodgers obviously are huge there, the Lakers, and success brings in the fans, and so. Obviously, they didn't win the cup in the early years, but some of those early players they had, it's a shame that they didn't get more in the way of the limelight. Kind of like a Rogie Vachon or a Marcel Dionne. The Triple Crown line was legendary.
Exactly.
Butch Goring,
That's something that I think about all the time. Imagine if Marcel Dionne was playing in Montreal or in a team that was really good. Because he was a great player and he had to compete against Lafleur every year after year after year. And Marcel was so much fun to watch because he was so flashy,
Right.
Even flashier than Gretzky was. Gretzky, he played, it was all in his mind.
Right.
Mind sense. But in Butch Goring was great fun to watch. But while it's on my mind here, I'll just tell you about Gretzky. We'll jump to him, and
sure.
When I could be standing next to you on the bench, and you look at the net from the bench, so I can see 2 or 3 players, and there's a tiny space between those 3 players, and the corner in the net that's open, and if I turn my head 6 inches, or from where you're looking, you can't see that. Only I can see that line. Do you know what I'm trying to?
Yep.
But he could see it. And then you'd say, oh my God, how do you do that? And he'd do it night after night after night. It was just like amazing to watch. And so unassuming guy, just came to work. We'd always have all this stuff out for him to sign, and he'd just sign it, and then you'd put a piece of paper to who signed, and then you write on it, just sign. So he'd write just sign right on the stick sometimes. But he was a funny guy, and but he had a lot of pressure on him. But he seemed to be able to turn the pressure off when it came time to play. But, you know, so many interviews and so many people wanting autographs, and wherever he went, he had to go in and out of the back, and, you know, they had to rush him around. But then when game time comes, he came to play. And, you know, he had that move where he'd come across the blue line on the right side, and as soon as he'd get across the blue line about 10 feet, he'd do a quick turn, a pirouette. He'd do it time after time after time, and they still couldn't get him because they were afraid to make a move toward him because he'd give them the howdy do, you know. So, yeah, fun to watch. And Rogie, we'll go back to earlier players like Rogie. Rogie was the calmest guy that ever played for the Kings. Very calm, very focused, really gentleman. His son and my daughter are almost the same age, and so they grew up together. And I only saw Rogie mad once. And, you know, in the 70s, we had that, we call it the NHL gonk. It was a rash that the players got. And a lot of them would have to take off all their gear in between the periods to cool themselves down. And it was an itchy rash.
Oh, wow.
It was all over their bodies. They think that maybe it was caused by the fiberglass from the sticks. So I was constantly washing the gear. I would wash the gear probably every, once a week, all the gear. We always wash the underwear and not the under stuff every day, but the gear we would wash often. So I took Rogie's chest protector and belly pad. It was in one unit, small little thing. I took it down and put it in the washing machine, and I went back about 2 hours later to get it. It was in an afternoon, and the cleanup guy that washes the towels and stuff worked for the forum. He put it in the dryer, and it was leather in the front, and it just shrunk. Like the belly pad was like this big.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this big. And Rogie was pretty upset the next day.
Oh, I bet.
Unlike Billy Smith, who played in Springfield with us when we were in Springfield.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, they was in the old Big E, the Coliseum in Springfield. And somebody broke in one night and through the small, tiny window about this big and reached in and grabbed his gear. And he came in the next day and his gear was gone. And he said, I need a new gear anyway. And he wore brand new gear that night. And darn it, they didn't. So then we made these bars out of wood, and we painted them black to look like real bars, but they broke those and took his gear again. So then we had the whole wall boarded up. But yeah, he was pretty easy going, Billy Smith. Yeah. Just don't go around. Just don't go near the front of the net with him with his stick.
I was just going to say that. Easy going until you get near him. And then
I'll just skip to that Springfield story. When we won the cup, I think it was 71, and season was really tight, and we had to play an extra game to qualify for the playoffs. I don't know the exact circumstances of it, but we were playing Quebec, and the game went into overtime. And as modest as Butch Goring was, he went over to the bench before the overtime and told Eddie Bush, the coach, "You better put your whole team on me because I'm going to get the goal." It's hard. I get emotional just talking about it. He did get the goal, and then we went on into the playoffs and we won the cup. I think we beat Providence, which was a treat for me because I'm from Providence. So, yeah, I have pictures of that cup there. So, yeah, it's let's see. What other players did you have that you wanted to mention?
We were thinking more along the lines. Well, obviously, we talked about Marcel Dionne. I always felt that the Triple Crown line was great. Dave Taylor is just a Kings legend that, I think amongst the annals, I guess, of great Kings players, sometimes he kind of gets, because he was the quiet, unassuming type. He wasn't very flashy, but he was so effective. But Dave Taylor was fantastic.
Oh, yeah. And he was such a great guy. Like when he, not only as a player, but when he was our GM, and I was president of the trainers at that time. We were really battling with the league for improve on our benefits, and he gave and we had, now there's 2 full-time administrators for the Professional Hockey Athletic Trainers Society, but it was just, our board doing work, and we had Marcia, our secretary, helping us, and only once did he say, make sure you give enough time for our team. He knew I was, but make sure you give enough time for our team, because Marcia's getting overloaded with typing all these letters up. Now you just dictate something to a text, but it was a lot of letters to Gary Bettman and Jim Gregory and the Pension Society and our trainers attorney to try to get things put together. But in that note, we finally got it done. But the sad thing for me was that it was approved, and I retired in 2006, and the new updated benefit package was approved in 2006 after I retired, and they did not make it retroactive.
Oh.
But they did. The owners knew that my fingerprints, and this is not about ego or anything. My fingerprints were on the improvements, and so they named a Pete Demers amendment, and the owners kicked in some money and put in an annuity for me, and so that was good. But the pension benefit now for trainers and equipment managers, and now they're adding assistant trainers to it, and it's all snowballing now. But yeah, it was tough going back then. We'd get warned all the time, cooperate with different changes they're going to have league-wide, with like names on the jerseys and advertising and everything else, and make sure you give business to these companies and that company that are giving money to the league. And it was pressure. If you don't comply with these things, it could be problems. And so there was a lot of hurdles for us to jump over, and but now the working conditions are so much more improved. For the trainer can focus on athletic training. He doesn't have to worry about this hook in his guy's stick, or left and rights, or is this guy's skates ordered, or how about the names on these jerseys? Who's going to do that? And the trainer did all that back then, but now trainer can focus on his job as rehabbing his players and taking care of his players, and the nutritionist takes care of her stuff or his stuff, and strength coaches do their stuff, and equipment managers do their stuff. So that's one thing that, if I had it to do over again, it would be fun just to walk in the locker room and just take care of my players and not focus on the other stuff, which I love doing anyway. I'd go around with a list in between periods and ask a guy, how's your sticks? Too whippy, too heavy, too light, too stiff.
Sure.
And those are the things we did. And then we'd call the companies the next day and make those changes. And so, that's just what we did. And then, you have to, the players, the trainers are responsible also for their families. A guy will come in and say, hey, my wife's sick. He just can't call a regular doctor. They would get in next week. So I call the doctor. So, then you're ordering medicine and through the doctors. And there's just so much stuff that people just have no idea behind the scenes. But now it's so much more refined and so much more professionally done. But we got by, and the players were happy. And we had I remember Jay Wells came in and said, we need tea in the locker room and coffee. I said, well, get on the coffee shop and get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, right.
We need a coffee machine, And then Ron Duguay came in and he said, we need bottled water. Who ever heard of having bottled water? Just drink it off the tap, And then, we had no ice machine. We'd use snow from the Zamboni to put our ice in our ice bags. And
wow.
It's just amazing changes. We used a cold hose in the shower to hose down a guy's ankle, freezing cold water. And, now we have ice tubs and cold tubs, hot tubs, saunas, jacuzzis. weight room that would match or better than any fitness club you could find around town.
Boy, I tell you, you know, and it's incredible when you think about that behind the scenes, and it's not something that everybody knows about or sees, of course, but we always talk about today's players compared to players of yesteryear, and to me that's just a losing argument all the way around, because I don't think you really can truly compare players from, like, say, today's era to 30, 50 years ago or whatever like that. But it's funny you mention all that, because I couldn't even imagine today's modern athlete having to go through that, getting, oh, my ankle's sore, so I'm going to put cold water out of a hose on the shower for you. So it's just incredible how things have evolved. And I wanted to get to
some trainers say that, agents, second opinions, MRIs, all that stuff changed the game a lot, but that's what we needed to upgrade the quality of our game. And we were real fortunate to have the greatest doctors in the world. And Curlin Job Orthopedic Clinic was right here in LA. It's still operating. And players, you send someone there, and they'll come back and say, hey, well, this guy from Boston Celtics was there, and Red Sox, or Yankees guys were there, and basketball players from everywhere, and they came from all over the country to come and see our doctors. And those are the guys that are covering our games night after night after night. And a lot, then when the agents came along, they'd want another opinion by another doctor. And so I set up a doctor. The guy'd fly to St. Louis and have someone looked at, and the doctor at St. Louis would just say, hey, go back and say, hey, tell Dr. Lombardo to operate on your knee,
Right.
Because they knew those guys had so that was really good for us. There was no second guessing on the quality of our doctors. So that makes a big, big difference, confidence-wise. And as I mentioned, it's all about, for trainers and players, there's two different categories. For players, it's T and A, and that's not what you might think. It's talent and attitude. Talent and attitude. For athletic trainers, it's loyalty and trust. In other words, trainers, they have that loyalty, and that player better hope that I know what to do when he's laying on the ice, and he does. And I'll just tell you, I was at a dinner maybe a couple of years ago, and Jimmy Fox was there, and he was talking, and he said, this story's a little hard to tell, but he said that he got hit one night. He was laying on the ice, and he didn't know what was wrong and what was going to happen, but he said, calm down, Pete's coming. So, that tells you about the trust that they have in us. And it's not, we check our egos at the door, and I want to make sure that it's said that there's no egos or big heads or anything. It's just that we go to work and love our jobs and what we do. And I was very fortunate to be rewarded with a lot of accolades, but it's nothing to do with ego. And the one thing that I regret that I'd like to mention is that my mother died when I was in Montreal, and I was stretching Sean O'Donnell, and someone came in and told me that my mother had passed away.
And, I'm sorry.
It was on a practice day. We were there for a couple of days, I think. And but anyway, so I went home, and we weren't playing for 2 or 3 days or something. And so anyway, I went home, and we had the funeral in the morning, and I was back in Montreal that night.
Wow, that is dedication.
And I regret that a little bit. And then when Dad passed away, we were in Chicago, and we had a couple of days in Chicago. We never get that. We had a couple of days in Chicago, and so I went home for Dad's funeral. We buried him in the morning, and I was back at that game that night in Chicago. And I regret that a little bit, because family comes first.
Absolutely.
And, but my brother said that Mom and Dad planned it that way. It had to be like it had to be, because we never had a case like that we just don't get 2 or 3 days off in the middle of a road trip. So, but I just wanted to pass that along. And there's no ego there. It's just
no, absolutely not.
Just
Absolutely
what
not.
we do. But the love of the game, that's what started me off when I was a kid. And I still have that love of the game. I'm real active with the Alumni Association. And when they have events, they call me. And I never had a number on my back, but I go to Staples and I talk to lots of people. Most of my fans are dead now, but
Well, it's hard to get the game out of your blood, though, isn't it?
it's still fun to, I mean, I like to, when I'm talking to somebody, I like to save this for the end of my story. And I know it's not the end of my story, but the greatest game in the world. And,
Absolutely.
I get emotional when I talk about it. So.
Absolutely. It really is. It really is, Pete. So before we go any further into more Kings history, I know you have got a wall full of memorabilia behind you that I was hoping you could kind of take us for a little walk through. You've had quite an international career as well, between World Championships and Olympics and of course, NHL All-Star games. Would you mind showing us a few of the pictures you got behind there? Or?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. And I can tell you a little bit about how that all came about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll just start off with, how's that? You can see that okay?
If you can get a little bit closer, that would be, there you go. Yep.
Okay, so that's in Red Square. That's Team Canada 1986. And we missed the playoffs, and the World Championships were coming up, and Pat Quinn was selected as a coach. We had 7 players on our team. You can see Marcel here. We had 7 players on our team that were chosen, and Eagleson's there. And so Pat Quinn wanted his trainers, and we're Americans, but they still chose myself and Mark O'Neill, equipment manager. And we had a great time. We won the bronze medal, which is right down there.
Now that's the World Championships, correct? Yes. Yep.
Yeah, the World Championships. That's my bronze medal.
Look at that.
That was pretty exciting, yeah. And then this All-Star game in Montreal, 93.
Just real quick, Pete. Real quick, Pete, just to finish up with the World Championship picture. So interesting story with that. You guys were over there in April of 1986, and the Chernobyl incident happened while you were there, correct?
That's right. And they never told us. It had gone off like a week and a half or almost 2 weeks before then, and they never told us. No one knew. Oof. And they told us the night before we were leaving, and we had to get out of there before they have a big parade in Red Square on May 1st. And we had to get out of there by May 1st, and they told us the night before we left that there was a nuclear explosion.
Wow. What a nice by the way, huh?
When we went across the border, some guys had some Playboy magazines they were taking with them to read on the plane and stuff. And when we got there, they confiscated all of them. And when we got back on the plane and went to leave, they gave them all back to us.
No questions asked, I guess, huh?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like I said, I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
This is my PHATS, Professional Hockey Athletic Trainers Society plaque. And this is my holy grail. This is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Same kind of plaque, same plaque that the players have. And we have a wall in the Hall of Fame that everybody can see with our trainers in it. And
that is amazing.
I'm proud of it. This is an all-star game in LA in 2002.
Very nice. Very nice.
And we had a 30th anniversary, and this is a plaque. This is a plaque we made up with our old crown, which we were talking about that, which uniforms I like the most, and these are the ones that I like the most, the purple and gold. That's
blue and gold. Nice. Very nice.
That's the history of the Kings is purple and gold, and maybe it was done for a marketing or what, but you know, you don't see Montreal or Chicago or New York. They don't change their logos. You know, you keep the same logo. But yeah, that was a great one. That was fun. This is a thousands game plaque. You can't see it very well, but I'm not sure when that was exactly. And here's the World Cup of Hockey. We won that championship. Lou Lamoriello was the coach, was the GM, and he selected me after having worked several times with USA Hockey for the World Championships and the World Cup of Hockey, and we won. We beat Canada. We were down 1-0. We were down 1-0. It was in Philadelphia. And then we went back to Montreal to play. But after that game in Philadelphia, we all had to walk down the same hallway. And it was a three-game series. And so we all walked down the same hallway. And Eric Lindros was walking down the hallway, and he said to his teammates, "Okay, guys, 1 game down, 1 to go." And I said to myself, "Don't ever say that."
Boy.
We ended up beating them. And I think that a big reason that we beat them was because our players had a lot of character, but so did the other team, so did Team Canada. But Rob Blake got hurt. In fact, I went to see him in the hospital. He was one of our players. He got hurt and couldn't play in the last 2 games, and that could have made a big difference because he was a great player. Plus, if you look in the replays of that game, they show it from time to time. They show that, and Gretzky missed a puck right in front of the net on the right side of the net. It passed to him, and he missed it, and that would have done it, you know. And for them, for us, that would have been the ice. That would have killed us, you know. So, and and that's Helsinki World Championships. And
what's that say, Pete? 1997.
1997, yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
This is a PHATS plaque, a Trainers Association plaque. I served 3 terms as president, and a guy made these pucks up for me, pretty nice. And Bruce McNall gave me this when I had 2,000 games. He made this up for me. It's a plaque, and he gave me 1,500 Silver Eagles and a brand new Harley Davidson.
Wow.
This was another thing from the LA Kings for LA Kings Hall of Fame. And here's
man, oh man, look at that.
And this one here is the Calder Cup in Springfield when we won the Calder Cup.
On Butch Goring's goal?
Yeah. Not on that goal, but you know, we ended up winning the cup, but we had to play that game with Butch Goring getting that goal. It was a game that we had to qualify to get into the playoffs. This is
Pete, you had to have taken a drink out of that cup, right?
Pardon me?
You had to have taken a drink out of that cup, right? The Calder Cup?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right.
A couple.
Just making sure.
This is, they gave us these World Cup of Hockey plaques. Are pretty cool. I don't know how great you can see all this stuff, but.
Yeah, okay. That's it.
This is another in Vienna World Championships in '96. And this is in '94. Wow. The World Championships in '94.
Oh, look at those mountains. That is beautiful.
Yeah. And this
is beautiful.
This is from the Kings, 2,500 consecutive regular season games. I never missed a game my whole career. And it's not about ego. It's about love of the game and loyalty to my team.
Man.
Here's Gretzky when he scored 802.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That really is.
And this is U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame plaque.
Wow.
This is a Rhode Island Hockey Hall of Fame. There's a pendant in there, like a big coin, and this is they gave me a jersey. from the Rhode Island Hockey Hall of Fame. That's my first jacket from the Rhode Island Reds.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. And my certification from the Trainers Association.
Wow,
So as you
fascinating
can see,
stuff.
It's here's my big tuna. I'm a fisherman, so here's my big tuna. That's
Look at the size of that.
It might still be up, but if you Google Pete Demers tuna, Kelly Rudy and Glenn Healy had it on Hockey Night in Canada.
Oh, wow! How long did it take you to bring that one in, Pete?
2 hours.
Woof! That's a lot of work.
So,
wow.
But anyway, again, over and over, I say that, I was so lucky to have people that have all the trainers work hard, but there's a lot of timing. A coach comes in, wants his guy, the other guy gets fired, and that coach gets fired. So then the new trainer that he hired is gone because the other guy comes in and doesn't want the old coach's trainer. I mean, it's a snowballing effect. And so ego aside, I had 13 coaches, 6 GMs, half a dozen owners also. And I don't know, I was just able to kind of go along. And then, a lot of times they make a lot of changes just because things don't go right.
Right.
And so it's all just, it's amazing luck and timing, and everybody needs a chance. So I say George Army in Providence gave me my chance, and Johnny Wilson gave me a chance in Springfield, and
man,
and then it just kind of went on from there. So,
but that's truly a testament to just how good you were at your job. Truly.
Well, everybody has the same qualifications, and everybody works real hard, and you got to have a lot of lady luck and prayer on your side.
Yeah. Well, still though, I mean, that's hats off to you, my friend.
Thank you. If it's fun to go to work every day and make the job is made a lot easier. You wonder, sometimes I wonder how I was able to keep going and going and going and going. I'm still going pretty hard now. I'm in the gym every day and having a good time. And but I just wonder back all those jobs we did. I had a total of 9 surgeries, several of them after I retired, in fact, that day that I was stretching Sean O'Donnell when my mother died, I tore my cartilage in my knee. He's a big boy and I'm a little skinny guy, so stretching him and that tore my cartilage that day. But I went back to LA. It was pretty sore, and so Dr. Kavitny said, "Well, we can fix that." I said, "Well, let's do it on a day off." So we had a day off one day, and I went in early in the morning, did it, and it wasn't a big piece, but it was a pretty significant piece they had to trim off, and went home, iced down all night every hour for 20 minutes and no sleep, and got up and went to work the next day, and then I jumped up on the rubbing table from the floor just to say, surgery's nothing. But my knee was killing me for a couple of days after that, but I never let on. They said,
even the trainers in hockey are tough.
Like they say about fishermen, if you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough. So if you're going to be dumb enough to be out in the water in the middle of the night and you ran out of bait and your lunch is gone and the waves are coming over the side of the boat and you're not catching any fish, you got to be tough. So if you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough. So
it's exactly right. It's exactly right. Yeah. So Pete, like I told you, I'm just a gigantic LA Kings fan. And of course, when I was growing up, I obviously idolized Wayne Gretzky. So, and I'm sure you get asked this over and over again, but heck, I'm going to ask you too. So you were obviously there when the Gretzky trade went down, and I read somewhere, or maybe you told me you were actually at the first press conference when Wayne arrived in LA. Is that true? And
yeah, that's right. They had it over at the hotel over on Century Boulevard, and I went over there and brought his jersey, went and got his jersey lettered, and I brought it over there. That was pretty exciting time wow, Wayne Gretzky's on my team,
Sure.
And we went to training camp, and the first day of camp, he came in and he had a little cut on his finger, like it was like a paper cut or something. And this is another one that's hard to tell. But he came in, I put a Band-Aid on his finger. And when he walked out, and I was a veteran then, I already worked for a long time, but when he came in 89 or 80, when was it?
88.
88, he came in. I was, I'd already put several years in. And I said, wow, that's Wayne Gretzky. I just put a Band-Aid on his finger. Who could say that?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. that was.
If it was me, I would have saved the wrapper, but.
That was pretty exciting. But yeah, this unbelievable, great memories, and they just flow out,
Right.
So many things. As lots of times we'll go to Mexico to my friend has his boat work done down there, and I'll tell hockey stories the whole way, both ways. Stories just come out, like there's so many.
Absolutely.
Like the Tiger Williams story of he got kicked out of the game after a fight. And so he went into the locker room. I wasn't there at the exact time, but he came into the locker room, and the concession guy would always bring a case of beer in third period, and he put it on the bench by the goalie spot. And Tiger came in. He was so mad about the fight or something. He picked up that case of beer and he threw it at the TV, and it stuck in the TV. And the stick boy ran out of the room. He was so afraid. And we came in between the periods, and this case of beer was sticking in the TV. So, yeah.
Was any of the beer salvageable anyway?
I don't know. I can't remember. I suppose. Yeah, I suppose maybe it was. I remember that. I remember when I was in Springfield, Butch Goring came in, and Rogie Vachon, he was there. He was a player in Springfield. I think he's passed away now, but he played with a toothpick in his mouth.
Ooh, that's a little dangerous.
His whole career. He's a defenseman. And so they came in on short notice, and I had an apartment. So they came and stayed with me, but they both slept in the same bed because I only had two beds in the other room. And so they slept in the same bed. And one morning, Rogie Vachon came in and said, Pete, as soon as Butchie comes in, you got to cut his toenails because he's scratching me all night long.
Did you?
Yeah, I cut him. Yeah, sure. That's what we do,
Right. Well, hey, you're the jack of all trades, of course, right?
Full manicure.
So I just want to finish up real quick. Like I said, when we first started talking here, obviously I named the show Marty's Illegal Stick, but it wasn't any disrespect intended towards Marty. And I'm going to tell you right now, the 1992-93 season was actually, even though the Kings didn't win the cup, it was certainly a high mark year for them. I mean, that was the first time they had made the cup final. And it's like I told you before, I truly believe that they probably don't go as far as they did were it not for the stellar play of Marty McSorley that year, because a lot of people forget just how good he was that year and just how versatile, too. He's able to play defense. He was able to play wing, can do whatever you want. Also in that season, too, Wayne Gretzky had a back injury, and he missed about half the season to it. Do you think maybe the extra rest during the regular season helped come playoff time? Because Gretzky was really good in that playoff series or playoff run, obviously.
Well, I think that everyone steps it up during the playoffs, no matter what the circumstances are. So I'm not really sure that had an effect on him, but he definitely got some extra rest. He had a really unique injury. In fact, Robert Watkins, a renowned back surgeon, he had a picture in his book. And Gretz had a herniated disc, and I think he might have hurt it playing tennis in Hawaii. And came into training camp with this sore back, so we had it evaluated, and that disc, that herniation dissolved and went away by itself, and that's very, very, very unusual for that to happen. Without surgery, it went away.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm sure a rested player is going to definitely have, rested players.
Sure.
Better. They only have a 45-second shift, and guys
Right.
that stay on the ice for longer than 45 seconds, it affects them in the next shift. I remember Bernie Nichols used to stay on the ice way past his shift time. So one night, Bernie came to change after being on the ice for 2 minutes. Pat Quinn said, "Stay out there." So he went back out there. He came back to the bench again after another minute and a half. Pat Quinn said, "Stay out there." So after that, Bernie came off the ice on time. But that '93 series, that was amazing. That was an amazing series, and then we went to Montreal, and as far as that stick goes, there were a lot of players that had questionable sticks, and maybe we should have picked up on it, but we didn't really realize it. But in Montreal, the hallway between the benches to the Montreal room is small, and they want to let the fans stick in. If you have 2 stick racks there, it's difficult space. So they would wheel the stick racks into the Montreal hallway inside their locker room. So they had the measurements on every one of our sticks. So
Wow.
it was, I think they chose Marty because he was a high profile, a talented player that if they could keep him off the ice for a few minutes, that would help.
Sure.
And so they called Marty's stick, but it was kind of a dirty trick, but that's.
Yeah, because
Well, we should have checked the stick. They told me that, we should have measured every stick, and players are responsible for their own sticks. But a lot of times a player will have a stick that's kind of questionable, and then they would get down to 2 minutes in the game, they would switch that stick
right.
to a straighter stick, But that was unfortunate. But then you go on after that, we would have gone home with a 2-0 lead. And we went home with a 1-1, and a lot of people can point their finger to that stick being the turning point, but we didn't score any goals after that.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what I was just going to say.
Your team has to perform. You got to get
Right.
more goals than the other team to win. That's what it comes down to, and we just didn't.
No, I mean that's I think it's completely unfair to blame Marty for that the Cup Series loss. I mean there's just no way that 1 2-minute penalty should make that much of a difference. And really, Patrick Waugh was outstanding in that series. I mean, he was just obviously the Hall of Fame level goaltender that he is. But I did want to ask you real quick too. So I don't think obviously Marty was the only one, and not even just on the Kings, but across the league. I mean, I had read somewhere that at that particular time period that, of course, guys were trying to get any kind of an advantage they could. But like you said, they just happened to know that Marty's, his blade was a little illegal, and they chose to capitalize on it.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just tell you, I just thought of something that this was when I was in the American League, and the Voyageurs were in Montreal playing there then. That's an American League minor league team.
Mm-hmm.
And so we arrived by bus, and Montreal had a late practice that day. And so we were moving our stuff into our locker room. We were going to play there that night in Montreal. And so I hung up the gear, and I'd never really gone out to look in the rink. But after I hung the gear up, I went out in the hallway and looked up, and there you see all the banners and everything. It's just like, wow. And I grew up the Boston Bruins radio and when I was a kid. And so I walked out up to the ice. The first guy that I saw go by was John Belleville.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
that's a tear to my eye. I mean, I said the first guy I saw, John Belleville, just skating by, and he just has that cushion in his legs. And I said, wow. And then many years later, I would, in the afternoon, and sometimes I'd go in the rink and in the visiting room, and I'd work out in their weight room. And John Belleville came in, and I introduced myself and said hello to him, but I never told him that story. And now I wish that I had told him that story. You know, like I had been a fan of his since I was 12 years old.
Yeah, from all accounts, from what I've read and heard about him, just one of the most gracious people you'll ever meet, ever.
Last guy, Ralph Backstrom kind of a guy, you know, always.
Right.
That's another guy I never saw mad was Ralph Backstrom, but he was assistant coach in LA when Bob Berry was a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And the bus was supposed to leave at 9:00. And in fact, I was on the bus. The gear had already gone to the plane. And 9:00 came, and Bob Berry said, "Let's go." He's in the front seat. And so I was in the next seat across from him. I said, "Well, Ralphie's not on." "Let's go," he said. Ralph had to take a taxi to the airport. And he was pretty upset about that. That Bob Berry wouldn't even wait for his own assistant coach to come out.
Oh, jeez. I'm sure that was quite the cold meeting.
I think we lost the night before. So.
Oh, goodness. That is funny. That is so funny. Well, you know, despite the Kings not winning in 93, they did end up winning the Cup in, everybody knows, 2012, 2014. And you did get a ring from the 12 team, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah, which was pretty classy of the Kings to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that had to have been an awesome feeling getting around. I'm sure you wish you were still, of course, it happened while you were behind the bench, but still, that was, I remember watching all that, and it was just, you could feel it right from the beginning of that playoff run, that there was something special about that team and that they were going to make a lot of noise.
I'm so lucky. I mean, I have a Stanley Cup ring, a Calder Cup ring, and a World Cup of Hockey ring, and a Team Canada ring, and a bronze medal, and I'm a happy camper.
Man, that is tremendous.
And I never scored a goal, so, you know.
Well, you never scored a goal, but you made a lot of saves as far as injuries and all that goes, for sure.
Yeah, it was fun.
Definitely. Well, Pete, this has been fantastic. Like I said, I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and sharing all these stories. And I'm sure there's a ton more if we got talking more about them. So you're gonna have to come back on.
Excuse me, I want to show you one more picture. I think it's up in the other room.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hold on a second.
No problem, my friend.
I gotta open the curtains here. Thanks for your patience.
No problem. Thank you. I mean, this is just like I said, this is a tremendous treat to have you on.
So here's a picture of Dave Taylor and myself in Toronto.
Wow. With the Campbell Bowl. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, that is great.
So there's a history behind this picture. It was in the training room it was a training room in Staples Center. And when Dean Lombardi came in, he wanted it out of there. So they took it out. And then someone called me about 2 or 3 years ago and told me that, hey, the Kings sold that picture of yours. I guess they sold some old photos.
Huh.
And I had told the PR department, hey, if you ever get rid of that picture, I want it.
Sure, of course.
Someone told me that, hey, I would have bought it, but they didn't have enough money with them. I don't know how much they wanted. But anyway, so the Kings had a new picture made about 2 years ago and gave it to me. And I put it up here.
Wow, that is great. That really is. My goodness.
And then I have this Gretzky, Leroy Neiman,
Wow.
Gritz had this made for everybody.
Wow. That's the record-breaking goal, correct?
Yeah, 802, and signed by Leroy Neiman and then Gretz here.
Wow.
He had these framed and had one made and gave us all one. So
Holy cow. That is awesome. That really is.
well, I gave
And
you the
not just as
$10 tour. I gave you the $10 tour, and but here's my striped bass from Massachusetts.
Oh, look at that thing.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So I got to keep. Do we have another minute?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I got to take you. I got to take you into the garage. Hold on.
We're getting the bonus tour now. This is great.
It's a $10 tour.
Yeah.
Hold on. So I have all this stuff in the garage, some fishing stuff. Here's a picture in Spring. I see that Springfield. No, that's in LA when I had a bunch of hair. Here's one of my boats. And
no kidding.
here's something from the Olympics in '84. I was a trainer for basketball. We had a clinic at the Forum, so I was the trainer. I ran the clinic. So that's another thing that I did. It was really fun. And this is my thousands games with Terry Ruskowski. That's that plaque that I showed you.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Here's the Calder Cup champion. Here's the Calder Cup photo.
That is amazing.
Another one of my boat pictures. My boat, the Kingfisher.
I love the name. That is great. That is awesome.
And my friend Al made these plaques out of swordfish that he caught. Yeah. And this photograph stuff, we do quite a bit of stuff. It's fun to do, you know.
Uh-huh. Wow.
I took this when they brought.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
When we moved, yeah.
Wow.
And here's our 7 players. Here's our 7 players and the 2 trainers from the Team Canada.
Oh, the ones that went to the Soviet Union?
Yeah.
Wow.
If you're a fisherman, here,
man.
And here's some sticks here that that's 69.70 in Springfield. And then Robitaille stick to me for the end of his career. And there's a Gretzky stick when I had 1,500 games.
Oh, look at that.
And
look at that.
Mark Messier sent a stick over to the locker room when I had 2,500 consecutive games.
Really?
Yeah.
What a class act. That's awesome. That is amazing.
In fact, I was lucky enough to be the first trainer that the Hockey Hall of Fame decided to bring to Toronto for the induction ceremony. And when Mark Messier got up to give his speech, acceptance speech to induction, he mentioned my name and said how happy he was to see that I was, the trainers are finally being recognized. So it was great, But
because you went in the same year he did, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But, it all comes down to it was a job, and the game is about the players, not the trainers. And we check our egos at the door. But, man, I was so lucky and had a great run, and I'm so thankful for, being able to have a career. It wasn't even like a job, It was so fun to go to work every day. And who can say that? I could have been stuck down at that Navy base.
Sure, right.
So.
Well, I guess that's a testament to taking a chance, right?
That's right, exactly. And then people giving you a chance.
Sure,
Everybody needs a chance in life. I mean, I have a half a dozen people along the way that if they weren't there, to protect me and to keep me in the fold, and things would have changed.
Wow, that's still just an incredible story, Pete. It really is. It truly is. And again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this with us, because this is, like I said, as a hockey history fan, as a hockey fan, and as a Kings fan, this has been a real treat. I tell you, thank you so much.
Well, it's a treat for me too. This a great hour and something. It was so much fun. I'm glad I could,
absolutely.
I'm glad I could be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, you are more than welcome to come back anytime, because I'm sure there's many more that we didn't touch on, which I'm sure we can get at least another hour, but for now,
some stories I can't tell.
Yes, I totally understand why too. Oh, that's great. But hold on just for a second here. I'm just going to close the show out real quick. But again, thank you for coming on. You can find us on the Sports History Network. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, of course, YouTube, and at Marty'sIllegalStick.com. So for Pete Demers, I'm Scott Kinville. Thanks for listening. We will see you next week on Marty's Illegal Stick, a hockey history podcast.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorum Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.